Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Thursday, February 26th, 2026, and today we're talking about why plants can go from good to bad so quickly sometimes, cover cropping in raised beds, and a nightmare straw scenario. That sounds fun, so let's do it. All right, happy Thursday, Nerd Army. I know my voice is doing a little bit better today, so that's good. I think we're getting better, but obviously not yet perfect. I don't know if my voice has ever been perfect. We'll see. How is everyone else feeling? Feeling ready for the spring is how I'm feeling. It's warming up this weekend. We're getting the fields all laid out for soccer. I'm here for it. I'm here for the spring. I'm ready for it. Oh, did I tell you that on Tuesday I got a load of wood chips? And here's the crazy thing. They called us. They were like, "Hi, I hear you're looking for wood chips." And of course, I promise I played it cool like I always do. And I was like, how soon can you be here? But anyway, shouts to all the people who do that work because it was like 20 degrees out that day. It's a loud job. It's hard. Lots of fumes involved. Probably not super rewarding, but I really, really appreciate them. Give those people a raise and my number. Grafts are still taking, so that's good. Going to be in the closet at least, another day or two. And then I might take them out on Saturday evening to start acclimating them a little bit more to the light. I put them in the kitchen and let them just get a little bit of sunlight from the window, and I just progressively give them more and more. My hypothesis here with these really, really little ones that we did is that these really little grafts will heal better and faster, but I did have to cut them lower on the plant, so the risk of rooting out of the scion, thus bypassing the rootstock, may be a little bit higher. We shall see. They will sometimes just send their little roots down into the soil. I guess I could slip a little piece of paper or something under there just to keep that scion from rooting, or not. I don't know. Also got the cukes started yesterday to start grafting those and planning to, if I can swing it, get some more lettuce and that sort of thing going today. I mean, I'm going to be planting in the field real soon, next week maybe. So yeah, it's kind of go time, sort of. Lightly go time. And as you all are getting things ready and in the ground this spring or out of the ground for you Southern Himmies, send us your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@notillgrowers.com. We'll be excited to see how everything goes for you all this year. Last thing, you may notice off to the side, I don't know which side, if you're watching this on YouTube, that there is a little donate thing there. YouTube enables nonprofits like No-Till Growers to raise money on the platform. And I just figured that out because I'm super good at this stuff. Anyway, if you ever like an episode or like something in this episode or just like the show in general, you can always, support it, throw a couple bucks at that thing. I think that's how you do it. I'm not super savvy, but I think so. And we deeply appreciate you. Thank you. All right. As is the tradition on Thursdays, we're going to take 3 Patreon questions today and just see where the convo takes us. As always, Patreon members, you can put your questions in the February, soon to be March show thread over there at patreon.com/no-till-growers. And I will tackle them here. Don't hesitate. Questions are super helpful for me for, helping reduce how much work my poor little brain has to do every day. But it will take me about a month to get to them. So just a heads up there, but you can always put a little alarm bell if it's an emergency, and I can give you a quick answer and then a more detailed answer one here later on. Otherwise, here's our first Patreon question of the day. This one from William Sweeney, who writes, quote, "I'd love to hear if you or anyone else has an answer to this question or has had a similar experience. I've experienced this with several crops, tomatoes, peppers, squash. I find that I start seeds, grow them up nice, big, they look good. Then they are planted out in the garden and they look great for a while. Then they succumb to disease. This doesn't occur all the time, but it happens with enough frequency that it's an issue. Yet I look around and see volunteers in the garden, compost pile, and other random areas, and they look great. They never get diseased, even though they get stepped on, thrown around, mowed, not the care I try to provide to my purposely planted seed-started plants. Of course, being in the zone of 5B, many of the volunteers come up too late to provide a meaningful harvest, which is why I start my plants indoors. I usually use Vermont Compost Fort V. Do you have any idea why this may happen? I find this problem so vexing, frustrating, but actually theoretically interesting that I'm trying to think of a way to warm the soil enough that I can start seeds outside and hopefully avoid these problems. Any insights would be helpful," end quote. All right, so interesting question here. A few things might be happening that are leading your plants to go from healthy to not so healthy with such a swiftness. So to start, the reason you are seeing crops succeed in the compost pile is probably pretty obvious. It's simply richer in nutrients than the garden beds. And to some extent, that probably rings true for other volunteer plants around the garden. But my assumption here is that those other plants that are not in the compost pile are also likely not giving you a great yield. Not so much because of the duration of the season, but because of, like weed competition is too heavy from other plants, and there's simply not enough available nitrogen and or phosphorus, potassium to be able to get you a really, really nice yield. To be sure, plants love growing among other plants and can be quite happy, but it's got to be highly intentional or they just won't yield very well. And your observation that directly seeded seeds tend to do pretty well is pretty true. I mean, in general, seeds like to just stay where they started because most seeds don't love their roots being messed with, especially for things like cucurbits. But that can be really hard, as we'll talk about in a minute, just for the duration of time that it takes for that plant to get going. As for the lack of garden success, I would be curious to hear more about your garden prep. Like, are you addressing soil compaction? How are you amending the soil? Are you adding homemade composts and or other amendments? And if so, how much and from where? How early are you planting? Like, is the soil still cold when you're setting out those warm weather transplants? Tomatoes and peppers, it could be a shared disease issue, but if it's also happening to the squash, that makes me think it's more soil health than anything else. So this spring, I would focus on soil prep. Amend the soil well, decompact it with a broad fork or shovel, prep the surface lightly, make sure it's warm when you plant those crops, or that soil has had sufficient time to warm up, then you plant. Also, make sure they're going into moist but not soggy soil so they can establish themselves quickly. One trick, in fact, that I found for heating up the soil for large transplants like peppers, like tomatoes, is to dig the holes the day before if warm outside, like if it's like warm enough outside, and allow those holes of the soil around them to warm up a little bit in the ambient temperature. Then you fill that with water just before planting if dry, and then add the plants and then cover that, cover the plant root ball. I find that will help a bit with the transplant shock, which itself can lead to disease. Yes, sometimes directly seeding crops can do better, but like you said, it's too cold for you to get a good crop off of those. Crops started from seed in the garden just required that much more weed control. And of course, especially with squash, they love rich soil, which is why they thrive so much in the compost. So as I always tell people, take the hint and give them, lots of compost when you plant those squash. Now, you could be transplanting diseased plants, but I find that somewhat unlikely. You would notice that in the greenhouse before planting them if it's affecting, multiple crop families especially, but just make sure your greenhouse is cleaned and sanitized. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, cover cropping raised beds in warmer climates to keep the soil in place because sometimes it just wants to roam, and we're not having that. BRB.
Hey nerds, Farmer Tony here from near Barcelona, Spain. Everything's going well in the greenhouse here. Spring is in the air. A lot of people use dibblers, and they're really handy for planting stuff. I made this other little soil blocker dibbler, 2 inches, and super nice for making a hole, pulling it out, placing the soil block. So that's kind of nice.
Today's episode is brought to you by Tend. Farming is hard, running it shouldn't be. Meet Tend, the purpose-built platform built by farmers for farmers. Plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No more spreadsheets, no more guesswork, just smart, seamless workflows. Tend adapts to your farm, 1 acre or 100. Real-time inventory, sales, labor, tracking, traceability, and analytics all in one place. You grow food, flowers, fruit, and more. Tend helps you to grow smarter. Start free today at tend.com. That's TEND.com. All right, back to the show.
If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Sandy, who writes, quote, I have 5 metal raised beds and 2 ground beds. I live in zone 9, Northern California, where we have light frosts most years. For the raised beds, I would like to figure out what kind of cover crop to use. I have tarps over the raised beds now due to atmospheric rivers that keep pounding us with up to 50 inches of rain the last couple of years. All my great soil was being washed away by these events. So other than tarping, is there a cover crop that might work? Can't get my mower into the raised beds. That's probably safe. I'm glad you're not trying to do that. Any suggestions for easy to kill, not needing much frost cover crops? Many thanks for your videos, book, and all your furry friends that follow you around. End quote. All right. Fun question here, Sandy. So the idea of dealing with cover crop residue in a raised bed is certainly a complicated one, but that's compounded even more by the fact that you have almost no hard winter weather to kill your cover crops. In a place that gets sudden heavy rains like that, though, if you want to cover crop those areas, I might not suggest a winter killed cover crop anyway. That is to say, one that would die over the winter. I mean, they certainly can work, but if that soil gets pounded too hard after they die, it could still wash away material potentially, that is to say soil. That said, it doesn't sound like in your region most winter-killed plants are really an option anyway, especially not with only a light frost most years. So what do you do if you can't really get a mower up there safely and don't get freezes hard enough to kill the better winter-killed cover crops? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that you need roots, lots of them. So a cover crop with good roots and easy to kill. And for that, I might actually recommend a thick planting of peas very late in the season, like October, not intended as a winter kill. The reason for that is that the peas are really easy to kill in the spring on your own. You can simply take a knife or like a hand sickle or something, clump up the peas and then cut them really, really low to the soil, and then either use that residue on the soil surface or remove it to the compost pile or whatever. And the tips will also make a good salad if you just cut the little pea tips. They're really delicious. So that's one option. Field peas, pretty thick, almost like a microgreen. Just let that chill out and grow all winter. You could also, if you did want to try a winter-killed cover crop, grow a late bean that same way, planted in maybe a little bit earlier, like late September. One nice frost would likely do them in. Then, of course, you have winter-hardy options like rye and vetch. I see people grow these on raised beds where they basically just let it grow until the spring, smash it down, usually by crawling up there and stomping it with a T-post, but whatever works based on your comfort level with standing that high up. Please don't hurt yourself for cover crops. Then add tarps for a couple weeks that you're using right now, and then you have a mulch ready to plant into. That's actually going to be a lot easier on a raised bed than in garden beds where it's hard to get a good crimp smash in the inconsistent, topography and moundiness of beds where one side is maybe like a little bit lower than the other side or something. It can be hard to fully crimp and kill your cover crops. But for you on raised beds, especially if they're nice and level, that is an option. There's not a ton more to add to that, I think, but living roots will help a lot to preserve the soil and enliven the soil for the spring, for sure. So I hope that's helpful. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. Up next, when your straw has a hidden secret. I bet it's actually a superhero. I'll bet that's what the secret is. I don't know. We'll find out. Be right back.
Hey, Farmer Jesse. Peter Edwards, Maryland, Zone 6B. Indoor setup. Moving from this in the last 2 years to this. Getting crazy. Some various lettuce still trying with leafy greens. Started some tomatoes early. These are from my own seeds. And some various peppers. Looking forward to a good season.
Today's episode is brought to you by Certified Naturally Grown. Certified Naturally Grown is the grassroots certification built by farmers for farmers. C&G gives local growers like you recognition for the commitment of producing food without synthetic chemicals by assuring customers that your practices are verified. C&G's peer review inspection model keeps the cost of certification low while creating opportunities for knowledge sharing amongst a strong, supportive network of like-minded farmers. Apply today to be certified before the season ramps up. Applications processed within 7 days. Learn more at naturallygrown.org. All right, back to the show.
All right, our third and final Patreon question of the day comes to us from Robert Kovac, who writes, quote, "Hello, Jesse. I wish you and your family all the best in the coming year. Thank you. The autumn, we tried a new supplier of organic straw to mulch our beds for winter. We bought wheat and rye straw. Both look fine and show no obvious seed residue, although that can be misleading when you're buying large 550-pound rolls. We used the wheat straw to cover the garlic rows after planting in early November and also on our new strawberry bed. December was quite warm, and unfortunately now we have a noticeable flush of sprouted wheat in the garlic rows with shoots around 2 inches tall. It's not catastrophic, but our garlic plots are fairly large, so I'd appreciate any recommendations on how to handle the sprouted wheat without harming the garlic, which hasn't emerged yet. For example, when would you suggest checking planting depth and, if it's sufficient, pulling the straw off the bed with the wheat seedlings? We also use rye straw on empty beds, and so far there haven't been any sprouts. At the moment, the garden is covered with snow, so there's nothing we can do right now. We're just looking forward to spring and the manual work needed to fix this. Thank you," end quote. All right, so this is a bummer, and unfortunately, there is not going to be an easy answer for what to do when this happens. Prevention, in this case, is the best medicine, but that's obviously less than helpful for you at the moment. Now, you said it's not catastrophic, but that you do have a large garlic patch. If it's at all possible, though, to hand weed it, then I would probably do that because everything else is going to be pretty labor intensive. Get a few people together while it's still cold and there's not a ton going on, but obviously after the snow is cleared, and just bust it out. It won't be perfect. You will be dealing with wheat until you harvest the garlic. That's just the reality of it, though. Now, you could also consider adding a little more of a different mulch over top. It's not my favorite option, and you would have to make sure it doesn't bring any of the, like any additional risks. And it may block some of your garlic from bursting through it, and not to mention the expense would be pretty high. But if you had other straw that you felt really good about, maybe you could add that over top. To your idea, yeah, you could rake it off, cultivate it, and then rake it back on, but you likely get a second flush. Plus, with the garlic, it's going to be hard to remulch, so you may just end up leaving it off and keeping that area cultivated with the straw kind of left there in the pathways. And wheat seeds that haven't yet germinated will take this as opportunity to do so. So the cultivation will be key, and hopefully you buried your garlic enough to not have to mulch for the winter. Again, no easy answers here. It's one of the more frustrating things, finding weed or wheat seeds in your hay. And if it were me, because it was me once with strawberries, I would go with the hand weeding option. It's really hard sometimes to know if there's a grain seed left in the straw, and that can be absolutely maddening with the stuff mulched over the winter because wheat really likes the winter to germinate. However, the supplier should know if there's any sort of risk there with the straw containing seeds. So it's always good to ask them. They may have a feel for how, the harvest or the growing season went for that, whoever produced it, and know just how much potential there is for it being contaminated. Although, yeah, we aren't always able to get stuff like this directly from the supplier or the producer. So I understand too, that sometimes that information is just not there, and it's hard to, see the weed seeds through the whole bale, especially if it's like a round bale. If it's square bales, you can kind of shake them out onto a tarp or a cart or something, and then you apply them, and that will help to work some of those weed seeds out. It will also add a little bit of labor, though, so that's something to calculate as well. But at least it's taken away from the labor of having to hand weed that patch later on. Obviously, with large round bales, though, that's even less practical. So anyway, bummer of a situation here, and I hope you found a solution in what I said or elsewhere that works for you. Otherwise, I think this Thursday is officially in the books. We will never again have this Thursday. It's done. That's it. It's done. On to the next one, Universe. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. And like I said, you can do that on the side of the screen somewhere. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of February, soon to be March, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Amy James with a fun little goat emoji thing. That's fun. Thanks, Amy. All right, so we get to return to our story this week about our billionaire, Chad, who has just lost his girlfriend. He's devastated, and he decides to take a hike up a mysterious trail that he finds when he pulls off to the side of the road. Mysterious to him, at least. It's pretty well known to the locals. But anyway, when he gets to the top of the trail, he feels great, like his blood is pumping, fresh air is filling his lungs, and he looks out over this vast, verdant landscape at this sort of like overhang, and he sees nothing but like forest in front of him and large birds like floating above the canopy, dipping in and out of the patches of fog. It is, in Chad's estimation, one of the purest, healthiest moments he's ever experienced, and he just feels amazing. Nature. Wow, incredible stuff. And immediately the realization hits him. I mean, his entire life has led to this moment. He knows exactly what his purpose is now. Clear as day, the words just flash across his mind like a marquee in a booming moment of pride. They say, I must buy this place and charge people to come here, probably through an app. And that is for tomorrow on the Appalachian Trail. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll do it then.